How is it that you can read subtle body language cues? Hi guys, my name's Deepak Shukla, founder at the Pearl Lemon Group. We're a business growth and development agency based in the UK, USA, as well as serving clients worldwide. And here today, in day number 42, we're here to talk about the reading of subtle body language cues. And if you, by the way, need any support with your communications training, whether it is internally within your team or with your clients, please do reach out to us. And now, before we kick off, feel free to click the link in the description below to get access to 7 additional strategies that are not shared in this training. And if you've been enjoying these videos so far, please do subscribe. I'm making them every day, so you should see them being released. And just love for you to be part of the communications training journey. So look, this is a good one, reading subtle body language cues. So I see it happen where people don't read the room, and they don't read the room through practice fundamental. They don't read the room because they don't necessarily realize what's being said through body language. So I think that, there's a couple of things that you could do out of the gate. So first of all, just being aware of what the other body language cues are. So I'd literally body language cues. So as you can see, there's going to be, some good images. What I'm looking for is the images, and then we'll go through some of the things that you can implement from it on a practical basis. So if we just open that up, now there's some of this stuff is going to be, let's call it obvious, but it's just useful being mindful of the different elements. So study the eyes, gaze at the face, pay attention to, okay, so this is just observe their head movement. So yeah, okay. So some of this stuff is what I think you should be mindful of in terms of what to look for. A lot of, depending upon the nature of what you're doing, if it's remote, then it's a bit more subtle because you need to look at it in Zoom. If it's in person, then it should become hopefully more obvious, shall we say. So let's just exit that drawing. I don't know, give me a second, trying to get this out of the way. There you go, perfect. So then you've got different examples, and you can, here we go, happiness. So this is quite a good one. You can see the different, and these are, so the thing here is, the problem with this is that these are exaggerated. Okay, they're definitely exaggerated, and these are going to be dialed down by 100x. So you need to look for the slightest evidence of it. Now this is particular to, I'd say, for example, like Western culture. If it's like Southern European or Latin, then it might be a lot more expressive if we look at general cultural norms. In India, for example, or Asia, it's more plain. So there's a lot more of a bit of a, let's call it, poker face. So everything is in the reading of the subtle cues. Okay, there's a subtle cues that you're looking for. Let's just have a look at the business handshake, territorial claiming, laughing eyebrow. Okay, fine. So let's go back now to our here. So look, when it comes to reading subtle body language cues, I don't want to go through like what are the different examples of subtle like cues. Broadly speaking, you want to look for micro movements. So look for micro movements or expressions. So think about everything that you could easily identify yourself. So that's, this person's happy, this person's sad, angry, thoughtful, anxious. Keep going through the entire range of emotions. There'll be images that you can spring to mind. I mean, I just recommend doing it in the mirror to yourself. Like, look at a full list of emotions and impatient, annoyed, frustrated. Like, what's the difference between annoyed and what's the difference between frustrated? For example, someone can be annoyed when they are, when you haven't sent them the email on time. They can be frustrated when we're making an effort, but you're not quite getting the result that you want. So it can be a shared frustration. Like, oh, I know you're frustrated. I am as well. When they're annoyed, it could be so. There's these little subtle nuances that you need to understand the difference between. So look for micro movements or expressions, and listing them out, if you will, and then you want to start to, just look. I say look out for, and this is something you need to be mindful of, and then watch playbacks of your. Now this is the part that becomes, so so assuming you record your calls, or that you have, and this is like video calls, or when it's in-person meetings, it's a little bit different. So we'll talk about that separately. But you will have Zoom meetings all the time with your team, and that's quite a safe environment to record a call, especially a conversation that's of no like importance, let's say generally, so it's not sensitive, and then you can watch it back. And watching it without the audio is something you could do to try and identify as many body language cues as possible. I don't think you need to do it that many times. I think you do that like once, maximum 3 times, like 5 minute bursts of a call, or 5 minute bursts of three different calls, because what it's going to do is just going to raise the concept of looking for body language cues to your level of consciousness rather than subconsciousness. And again, this relates a lot to active listening, that depending upon how someone moves or what they say, or a slight shuffle in their seat, or a kind of a bit of an you need to adjust immediately if you can sense something is up. And where it often falls apart is ultimately that people don't realize that that's going on. So you look at others when you go to a cafe. So watch playbacks of your own calls. Watch with the audio off. So this is something, I mean, you can watch also with the audio on, because you want to listen for the little murmurs, the little grunts, and there are kinds of body language cues, because they are often accompanied with a slight shift, and it's the combination of the two that can alert you to it. And the better that you get at identifying them, the more that you practice, the subtler body language cues you'll be able to read. And that's when people begin to think you're quite perceptive, aren't you? Because you become attuned to listening for body language cues as well as seeing body language cues. It's seeing and listening, because sometimes, if you hear me say, that will be accompanied by, my body language, and that might be a lot simpler. Like, so there, if you could just hear that, that would be accompanied by a body language cue, and it might be in a busy conference call and there might be a lot going on, but I would notice that someone's trying to hide their frustration. And that's what you need to try and identify when someone seems to shift a bit. They seem like they're a little bit there's just things that are beginning to happen which tells you, alert, alert, you need to change direction. So being able to read them begins with, surprise, surprise, identifying what kinds of body language cues there are. So you could just do the Google, you could just think about it yourself, watch playbacks of your own calls, look at others when you go to a cafe. Watch yourself in a mirror or a camera, I say, and try a load of cues out, because I think that that's going to be quite useful as well. Uh, because if you just try a load of cues out and try and make them subtle, so try and almost do it as if you were trying to hide it from somebody, but then being aware of what's going on, it's going to massively help when it comes to calls, as conversations, and all of those types of things you have, in combination with the general Google advice, which is watch their feet. Where do they put their hands? Where do they put their elbows? Do they turn away slightly? Are they looking at you eye to eye? Are they looking slightly away? Like, so those types of things, I know that I'm not covering here, but I'm assuming that you're mindful of those kinds of things that I'm not covering here. So then you can focus on this section of it. So there you go, guys. That is how to read, or to practice the reading of subtle body language cues.